Nigeria viewers. My name is Jibola Dabo. Keep watching Mid-Morning Show.
All right, those are the words, very apt, very clear, and that's how we launch another round of the Mid-Morning Show here on BCOS Television. Hello there, it's another Monday morning. I'm Funsho Jobi. Welcome.
And I am Toasting Omolaja saying good morning and welcome to the Mid-Morning Show. Today, Monday, it feels good to be here again amidst the hustle, the bustle, the protests. Everything. We are still grateful that we have life. And democracy, the layman definition, is the government for the people, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, this has been questioned right now in Nigeria, if truly we are practicing democracy, because one of the benefits of practicing democracy is having the rights, human rights. And one of the human rights is the freedom of expression.
Okay.
And this is what is being done by a whole lot of people in Nigeria right now. And the appropriate quarters, am I going to say they haven't said, they have actually spoken, but they haven't talked about what the people or the youth, in quote, want. Am I right?
Well,
you are part of the youth.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that there's a demography of those people you referred to making those demands and pushing forward those agitations right now. Of course, that bracket primarily has the youth in it. And so, well, do we actually know what their demands are? Big question. Because in the first place, there was a clear-cut agenda. There was a reason for the reactions. There was a reason for the noise. And, well, it seemed fair and just and approachable by many, because that's one thing you actually need. You don't just start a movement. You need people to buy into your idea. And so it was something that was embraced by all. I mean, hey, police brutality. There's even a global campaign on against police brutality. So, yes, that was absolutely apt. But then we've seen certain things also happen in between the timeline of when the agitation started and right now. And so there's a bit of confusion from my own end as to, hey, do we actually know what the current agitation is about?
Oh, well.
Or has been about?
For those who are trying to hijack the protests, I think the youths are trying to do justice to that. I heard in Lagos that I think on the 3rd mainland bridge or some parts of Lagos, youths who were, on the night shifts of the protest actually chased out armed robbers who were trying to rob, vehicles and then they did just to that. So I feel that miscreants are trying to hijack the protest, but those who know what they want are standing their ground. That look, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, totally. It's such a wide conversation, and that's one of the reasons why I'm just absolutely thrilled about the crop of guests we have in the studio today. Particularly our first guest, who we will be introducing to you sometime very shortly. Today it's about the power of the people, or the people's power. And that's what we're looking at today. We'll take it from different dimensions and hopefully come to a fine conclusion.
Okay, so first things first, we'll allow some pictures speak to you and I, speak to us, before we introduce our first guest for this morning.
That's right. Let it rip.
Ever close your eyes, ever stop and listen, ever feel alive, and you're nothing missing. You don't need a reason, let the day go on and on. Let the rain fall down everywhere around you, give into it now, let the day survive.
Hi, my name is Dayo, D1 Adine, but you can call me D1. You're watching the Mid-Morning Show on BCOS. Don't touch that dial.
All right then, so welcome back. It's still the Mid-Morning Show, and you just saw the picture speak right there. I mean, when pictures, as they normally say, now as you pose, you go show. And so, well, that's just why pictures are so timeless. What's your message from the pictures you just saw? I think that's one big question we would like to pose to our guest, who's already here seated in the studio. Tosin, why don't you just tell us?
Good morning. So we have in the studio today Mr. Ridwan Rashid. He is a social entrepreneur and a public commentator, and he's been doing a whole lot. He's deeply passionate about community building, leadership, and human capital development, and he's been working towards that. He's recognized by the Tony Elumelu Foundation as one of the top young emerging entrepreneurs in Africa in 2019, and awarded by Accra Business School as an Africa Young Leader 2019. Good morning, and thanks for coming on the show, Ridwan Rashid.
Yeah, also the founder of 0 to 1 Foundation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I mean, in all indications, or from all indications, you are the ideal youth. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still under that age bracket, and everything that I do also centers around very young people. And basically, what we've seen from the picture speaks. I've been at the forefront of calling for end SARS and social reforms, because what I see is that we've had a security system that has for a very long time oppressed a lot of young people. And one of the things that we've seen so far from this happening, because if you look at this, right, you see that this is not the first time it's happening, that people are protesting. This is not the second time. This is the fourth time that we're having this issue occurring again. And what we ask ourselves every single time, the government says that, we've disbanded SARS, we've reformed SARS, we've done this. What we saw was that, we saw that it was beyond just a proclamation. It was beyond just an announcement that these people are disbanded. We saw that this is more systemic, and we have to attack it as it is. And that's why we as young people are saying that, we don't just want, we just want statement from the government or statement from the police. We want to see far-reaching reforms, right? And we laid out what we think is a framework to help the government get to the root of this issue, because we know that these things can be solved. Within just one week, we've seen young people organize themselves into a powerful force that the government is now able to now recognize. We've had this, I can start to mention a lot of things that we've done as young people across this country in the past 88 days. We've seen people, we've seen volunteer lawyers going out to ensure that everybody that is arrested are self-pay, because they are, and this, if you look at the arrest, for example, in the first place, it's quite unlawful. People are protesting against police brutality, and then you are also showing this police brutality by also locking these people up because they are, they were just going out to express their fundamental human right. Now, what we're saying is that beyond fast reform, we want the government to use this framework. If they don't know how to create one, we're giving them something that we think would help them get to the bottom of this problem. And the questions are quite simple. The first thing is this end SARS, which I think is done, so it's been done. However, we still see them on our streets. They're still terrorizing people as I speak to you now. We don't want to see them on our street again. That's some of the things we're asking the government. The second part is that everybody has been unlawfully detained and arrested because they went to protest, to express their fundamental human rights. We want their unconditional release. That's number two. That's quite easy to do, because first, they didn't commit any offense. They were just basically expressing their fundamental human right. That's the second thing that we're asking the government to do. The third thing that we're asking them to do is that the first is more systemic, which is basically all of this, everybody that has been brutally maimed, everybody that has been killed by the police. We want all of them to be compensated, adequately compensated, because that's how they would know, and they would know that the people the children that died, the family member that died, didn't just die in vain. And the fourth part is that we want every single culpable police officer that killed somebody, that mined somebody, or under whose watch somebody was killed, to also answer for their crimes, because nobody's above the law. This is exactly what we're saying. It's simple. It's simple. And another thing that we're also asking the government to do is that we know that the police service, I just don't want to call them police force, because we think that they are there to serve us, right? We want them to also be adequately taken care of. We think that we've given people rifles to save us and secure us, and we've not also done adequately to ensure that their welfare is up to standard. Another thing that we're also asking the government to do is that we want our police service to be trained to be able to deal and engage with young people in the 21st century. Because what we've seen is that, personally myself, I've also had encounters with the police, right? And these are people who ordinarily does not understand the work that some of us do today, which is not so much of their fault. You can't ask somebody to give what they don't have. So what we're asking is that let's get these people trained, let's get them educated to the point where they understand how to engage and relate with people in the 21st century. We've gone past the days of brutality, the days of fall. We want them to know that the citizens they are meant to protect the citizen, they are meant to engage the citizen, and they are meant to also dialogue with the citizen.
Okay. Ridwan, you've said a lot.
Yeah,
and, it was important we allowed you that space. Very quickly, I'd like to point something out. You said you still see SARS on the road.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not sure 100% about that, because we know officially there has been a disbandment of SARS. All right? But that's one.
Yeah.
That's one. Let's take it a few steps behind now.
Yeah.
Where exactly, where we're going, we need to know where we're coming from, right?
Yeah.
Now, this seems primarily between the Nigerian police and the youth, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't think entirely it is, because we also see older generations also come support the protest and talk about the fact that for a very long time they've seen police brutality, But I think that primarily it's more about the young. I think where the
exactly. Let's just say the younger population.
Absolutely,
right?
Yes.
Okay, what would you, in your own opinion,
Absolutely.
You've been around, enough to see what's happening pre-protest, not this particular protest.
Yes.
Now. What would you say drives the Nigerian youth? Because the police would say, there's a bracket within the Nigerian youth, a large bracket at that don't necessarily have an occupation, don't necessarily have any entrepreneurship, and don't have any usable skills.
Yes.
There's a chunk of such people. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. But however, I don't also think there are also people like me who have jobs, who have occupation that also seen police brutality. We've seen it over and over again. And let me just maybe say this again to just maybe clear it. All of the people that you see on the street protest, it's not everybody that's actually not employed or don't have a job. For example, in my organization, when this started, what we did was that we enforced a 5-hour work schedule and a 5 hours protest schedule where we want people to go exercise their right to protest, to express, because we're tired of always getting stories of police actually affecting the way your people work from when they're working, because people label criminals because they have computers in their bag, and because they use a certain kind of phone to work. It affects us as you run a company and you have to budget for how much you always bill your staff in a month. It's just not uncomfortable, because again, for example, we've had issues where our staffs, at gunpoint by police officers had led to ATM machine just to withdraw money for them. All of this is just uncalled for and it's insane. So what we want to do, so that's why for us as an organization, and I also have a lot of other people that we know that this affects us. So what we've done is that we've created a schedule where you can work from home, you can work some shift of actual work, and then you dedicate to other times to also protest it, because we know that this is the only way we can get the government to listen.
So some people have said that the SARS unit of the police force, they are not answerable to neither the governor of a state, the commissioner of police in a state, or even the inspector general of police. They are only answerable to the president. And so far, the disbandment or whatever was a directive that came from the inspector general of police. Is that why the protest is still going on?
That's not exactly why the protest is going on.
Okay.
I'm going to answer your first question first before I now go to why the protest is going on. The first thing that we've seen, in this 1 week of protest, we've seen that, these people are not answerable to anyone. That's interesting. Immediately the IG, the Inspector General of Police, came out and announced the fact that these people should stand down, they're dissolved. We still have these people on the road continuously maiming people, and of course, we still have some deaths, some people that were killed also during the process. So if they were answerable to the IG, for example, I think that should have been enough to actually have them leave the road and go back to their barracks. That's one. Again, after the president's announcement again, we've also seen that these people also are still on the road. Some of them are still on the road, still doing the same thing, right? So that's why we think that these people do not answer to anyone. And again, because under the Nigerian constitution, the governor of the state does not have the power over the police. The police is directed towards the presidency. Now, what we've seen is that a lot of the governors of states are actually helpless in some of this situation. They have to also refer back to either the Inspector of Police or to the president. That they want this to be solved. And that's one of the things we're also calling for reforms, right? And that's that's going back to your next question, which is about why have people not left the streets. Now, we've heard that SARS is disbanded by the president and both the IG. Now, this is what we think is the first step for a long process. However, we do not trust the government to go through with the reforms. Why don't we trust them? The first thing is, this is not the first time. This is actually the fourth time in the space of 3 years. This started in 2017, right? And every single time, they've always told us that this is being solved. Again, the government is not transparent enough for us to trust them. Okay. So what we wanted is that we've created a framework for them to follow through to solve the problem. And the framework is simple. That's what we call 5 for 5.
Yeah, okay. You know what, Ridwan? Pardon us, just hold that thought. Yeah. We have a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us on the Mid-Morning Show. Well, that's it. It's a wise saying. It was said by Eleanor Roosevelt, and I do believe that's the wife of one-time American president. So with every experience, you gain strength. And I think that's the crux.
You stop to look fear in the face.
Yes, I mean, undaunted. All right, we have to balance this discussion in the shortest possible time we have, Mr. Ridwan. Now, there's an image that seems to come with Nigerian youth. And I say this with all due respect. And we've heard it from across board, from the likes of the hush puppies to some individuals who have also come under the arm of the law or have defaulted in one way or the other fraudulently. Okay, I mean, for instance, even as this protest is ongoing, we have some threatening to hack certain databases, saying they're going to distribute money, saying they're going to give free DSTV subscriptions to people. Is that not the very image of the youth that we're supposed to be shying away from? Is that not the very bane of what started some of SARS's extortion and exploitation in the first place? Aren't you buttressing their points with some of these actions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're very right. And I think that, one of the things as young people that we've been very careful about is the fact that we don't want hoodlums and thieves to use this avenue, to cause rancor and cause problems for, the country as a whole. And one of the things that we've seen happen, is the fact that we've had, processes in place where we've come together to create so that we are able to, I'll give you examples. I'll give you real examples, some of these things. It's a Garo process. One of the things that we had, one of the issues that we had last week started from when we had hoodlums and thugs come destroy protest, vandalize stuff. And, and one of the things that started to happen is that we started to organize, and, at every we started to organize and have private security people guide protesters, just also to ensure that, we're able to go on and protest without necessarily having to also have fears for our lives and, have things destroyed.
Okay.
That's one thing again. The second part again also is that we had people issuing statements here and there and saying, these movements are quite deep. This movement that of people doing such acts is quite different from our own agitations and what we're doing about. We've had several issues that have been suppressed that could have come to the limelight and maybe overshadow what we're clamoring. I'll just mention a few. We've had the issue of LGBT people want to join the protest. We've also had issues of people also wanting to also use the protest for extortion, and also to parade themselves as like saviors and messiahs for the entire campaigns. We have some of these things. However, it's an ongoing process. But now to answer your question is that we can't rule out some of these things from our society. However, if somebody is caught in the act of a crime, what we think is that the person has to be apprehended and of course carried to face the full weight of the law. However, as police officers, as civilians, we are not expected to now unleash, our what we think our own judgment on the person. We think that's meant for the court to do, and that's what we're saying about the police. If you catch somebody that is culpable, even somebody that's a criminal, you don't maltreat them because you don't. They also have their hope. They also have their right.
Innocence until proven.
Absolutely. That's what we're saying. You catch somebody who is actually culpable. Maybe he's guilty of an offense. However, we don't have the power to say that. We're supposed to charge them to the court and let them face the law.
All right.
Now, as Funsho said, that we need to balance things
Absolutely.
up. I'm sure that somehow you would also want to know the minds or know the mind
Yes.
of the government.
Absolutely.
What exactly is the government thinking at this time? Because yesterday or 2 days ago, I think protesters in Egypt
Yes.
were arrested.
Absolutely.
It was a peaceful protest,
Yes.
and the Nigerian embassy called up the police to arrest those protesters. What exactly is the government thinking concerning all this?
Okay, just to talk about the people from Egypt. This morning I was reliably informed that about 8 of them were already released. People that had their residence permit are already released while they're working to get the rest out of there. And this is what we've seen so far, that, for every country that is serious about their citizens come first. You get them house first, you ask other questions later. Because these are people, your people, our people, right? And going back to the question is about what is the government thinking at this point in time. One of the things that we've seen so far is that we've started to see some successes. Just yesterday, I think the government has directed each state government, the federal government has directed all state governments to set up a judicial panel to look into all atrocities in their states, and have the recommendations submitted back to the federal government for those found guilty to be prosecuted. And that's a welcome development. However, what we want is something that is transparent, something that is clear. We want to see this televised. We want to see it happen because we can't trust these people to have behind the curtain panels, because we've seen cases where people who are supposed to be, I will not mention them now, we've seen cases where, people, panel and committee like this, people that are supposed to face the law, the full law of the law, have to absolutely escape injustice. So we want this to be televised. And trust me, there are so many stories, heartbreaking stories of people who have had their family members killed, maimed, we have people that have been extorted, tortured. We've had several stories. So we want all of these stories told. We want all of the indicted police officers or either their superiors to face the law.
Now, sorry, for sure. At what point did this NSAS thing graduate to, because we have the hashtag NSAS, hashtag NSWAT.
Yes.
At what point did it graduate to the hashtag End Bad Governance? So, hashtag Buhari must go. We have a whole lot of that. At what point, what were the youths thinking? Because it all started, with the SARS and SWAT.
Absolutely.
Was this ever about end SARS?
Yeah, I think it was about SARS. If you look at what actually started the entire protest, this particular protest, it was actually a case of somebody who was murdered by SARS.
We know.
So that's what started it.
But then again, it started a while ago, which you yourself pointed out.
Absolutely.
A few years ago.
We've had several NSAS protests, at one point or other, where we have reports of people either killed, maimed, or actually extorted. We've had it for the past 4 years, and it continues to happen every single day after each of this protest, and maybe promises by the government. However, at this point in time, what we're saying is that the government has not done enough. The government has not done enough in terms of engaging young people. We have people who are killed, and we believe that every serious government will come out to engage people. Either saying, what's quite heartbreaking is that some of these people who were killed in front of this protest. We've not seen a lot. We've not seen the federal government send like condolences to some of the families and some of these things. The only thing we've seen is some state government actually going out to for condolences to some of these people. These are human beings. These are citizens. We expect the government to do better, and that's exactly what now graduates into end bad governance. Becoming transparent, and police brutality, and some of the things that we're saying.
All right, we have just a few seconds to go. Now, Ridwan, I'd like to ask you, protests
Yes.
as a means of expressing your grief or agitations,
Yeah.
how effective would you say they've been in Nigeria as a tool?
So I think it's really been effective. However, one of the things I've seen that has happened to some of the protests I've had in the past is the fact that we've not seen things through. I just said a couple of things. We have about 5 agendas that I think I like to call it 5 frameworks, which we're asking the government to use to actually to do policy and end SARS. Now, out of some of these 5 agendas, we've seen about 2 of them in progress. First is we've had SARS dissolved.
Okay.
Even though we want to see that in action. The second part is also that we already have judicial inquiries, judicial panels being set up in several states to look into atrocities committed by some of these officers, and of course the recommendations submitted back to the federal government for those that to the attorney generals of each of the attorney generals of each of the states to prosecute those that are actually found guilty of those offenses.
Okay.
That is a step in the right direction. If we did not protest, we would not be here today. Again, some of the people that were also in the last 8 days, some of the people that were also extorted, some people that were also mahimed, we also have police actually police the police involved. I mean maybe it's the state or maybe the local government where the police is. We had the particular police there actually going to apologize to the people. We also had some money refunded. And this is one of the things these are some that have not made it to the news. But some of these things are actually welcome development, because if they weren't processed in the first place, some of these things will not be said. I feel proud as a Nigerian because this is happening. This never happens. This never happens before until we started to protest on the street and ask for our which is to be met.
All right, then. We'll just put the conversation on pause for now. We wish we had more time with Mr. Ridwan, especially since the big population in this bracket is from his and our generation. But then thank you, Mr. Ridwan.
Thank you for having me.
For coming today.
All right, Mid-Morning Show continues after this break. Don't go away.